Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Porier. Coming up at our next pay-per-view. So, if you didn't know, I really like commenting on the ESPN MMA on Facebook. And one of my recent comments was, if Islam stands and bangs with Dustin, I will have the utmost respect for him. And it seemed to lead to a lot of good discussions in the community. A lot of comments came off of it, stuff like that. Now, after looking at all the comments and responding to some, seems a typical response. Something in communication I've learned is like how people perceive a statement. And it's like all the thoughts behind it. It can really get tricky. So it became very obvious people perceive that statement or their interpretation of what's going to happen is Islam is going to shoot for a takedown like them Dagestani guys always do, and he's going to lay on him the entire time. I don't think that's what's going to happen, guys. I understand why we all think that's what's going to happen. You know, Islam coming from Khabib, all those guys out of that camp that Khabib came from, you know, they're all so strong in wrestling, and Khabib's own personality, he based everything on wrestling. Like, he believed wrestling was way, way more important than striking, and wrestling could beat striking. And it's hard to argue with a guy that goes undefeated. There's a lot of conversations to have with that, though, too. Some examples of how he might... Well, we'll just do one. I don't think this is up for a big debate on Khabib, but, like, there's footage of, like, Henry trying to show Khabib a move off of a kick and understanding range, and Khabib's just, like, brushing it off, and he's like, why don't you just wrestle? And let's take a moment to think about that. So in my statement, when I'm saying that Islam would have my utmost respect if he stood and banged, I think back to Georges St-Pierre. When you think of Georges St-Pierre as one of the greatest fighters of all time, you have to understand his approach to fighting. It's not just his performance. There's a lot of thought that goes behind his performances, and one of his things that may sound unusual, a lot of the greats always do things that sound unusual until they do it. His opponent, whatever their strength was, he is going to attack their strength. That way, when they feel like they're losing in that area, they're going to try to counter into an area that he is already stronger in. So, say he fought Khabib. He's going to come out and he's going to start grappling off the bat, and he's going to try to outdo Khabib in grappling so that Khabib tries to lean on Khabib's striking, which is not very good. That seems like a wild, wild thing to do, and it is a wild thing to say, but we got to watch him do it, and we got to watch him talk about how he did it and how he planned it and his thoughts behind it and everything, and you can't argue with his results. So, Khabib does not have that approach at all. Khabib is just straight lean on wrestling, stay strong in wrestling, maintain wrestling. Imagine, women can be in this sport too, but I'm a guy and most of the time I'm working with guys. So, imagine you're a man and you're training in MMA and you have someone like Khabib in front of you. And when I say in front of you, it's like they're a little older. They're a couple steps ahead of the game with you. They go on and they win the championship and they retire and all this greatness and everything. Don't get me wrong. I think Islam still looks to Khabib as a great fighter. But imagine the chip on your shoulder that would have. Like, imagine Islam coming up and winning the belt, and some people somewhere are saying, you only got that because Khabib showed you how to wrestle. You only got that because Khabib did this. You only got that because you're in Khabib's camp. So the great ones that come behind a great one will want to outdo that great one before them. Not out of disrespect. It's not like he wants to... Well, I do think he wants to be better than Khabib. I don't think we'll ever hear him say that because there's such a high respect level within that camp. But without a doubt, I would imagine Islam wants to be better than Khabib. If they get pretty neutral on wrestling, which they probably are, then they're going to go to striking. In Islam's last few bouts, he has really shown a difference in my eyes of his ability to strike. I was talking with Wild Wayne here recently, and I was talking about the space that strikers, like you can tell a good striker a lot of the times within about the first 20 seconds, and they don't even have to throw a punch. Like you can tell by how they're walking and leaning and balancing range. Like that Mauricio Rufy guy, man, soon as I turned on his fight, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And I don't think he threw a punch for the first 45 seconds or the first minute. Just finding that range and gauging it, letting the other opponent get tired, not wasting shots for no reason. There's just an understanding. You'll see the same balance of space in people like Israel. You'll see it in Alex. Saw it in Max against Justin. Not as often. Max can be really fluid and jump around, don't get me wrong. But that same distance and walk of space we saw in his last fight against Volkanovski. We didn't see it that much in the first one. Maybe in the beginning. I need to go back and watch it. It's been a while. The first fight definitely turned into a lot of wrestling and a lot of ground and pound on both of their parts. Like both of them were responsible for that. But if you go back before that, like when Islam fought Charles, Islam was hanging in there with Charles striking. I think Islam dropped him. But the first time I saw Islam working on any striking was when he was moving forward on Bobby Green. He didn't do it very long, but that was the first sign I was like, yo, this guy might want to do more than just follow in the footsteps. He might want to become greater, which is really exciting to me. So, in conclusion, as I'm making a prediction about this fight, or what I think how the fighter's going to approach it, I think Islam's going to stand and bang. I think Islam is going to stand and bang, and he's going to do very well. I think Islam hits very, very hard, especially with the way he's standing. If he can stay calm in chaos and not panic and back up, if he doesn't do a lot of this, he's going to be fine. If he covers up and plants his feet and finds his eyes, he's going to do very, very well. And he won't have to shoot a takedown. He'll be able to drop Dustin eventually. I don't see Dustin's body holding up like Islam's. And I know a lot of people would say that's crazy. Islam got dropped early on in his UFC career, and ever since then, people have been saying he's got a glass chin. I don't quite think that's the case. I think when you get clipped, you're going to get clipped. It's going to happen. I don't think it's happened enough with Islam to say that he has a glass chin. But I think the question will be, how long does Islam stand and bang? So if the fight goes past 3 rounds, I don't see Islam continuing to stand and bang. But I do see the first round, Islam coming out and standing there and trying to trade with Dustin. Now, don't get me wrong. If Dustin catches him, I think Islam shoots for the takedown, which wouldn't be a bad move. You know what I'm saying? Like if you get clipped and you are about to lose the striking battle, which would cause you to lose the whole fight, it's not stupid or unethical to shoot for that takedown and go to a realm to buy some time. I also think due to a lack of experience in striking and just comfortability in striking, if Islam clips Dustin, he is going to shoot for a takedown. You see that a lot in strikers that they don't believe in their striking. They're so caught up in the moment. Say you clip someone and they stumble back to the cage and that person charges forward on them. That person then oftentimes gets way too close to be able, they get chest to chest up on the cage and that person's way too close to throw 1s and 2s anymore, which they were doing good at. So in a panic and rush, feeling like they need to do something, they grab them and sweep their legs up. Well, now you're giving this guy time to recover and you're giving him the opportunity to bring his arms around him. Where if you would have stepped back off of the cage, he might turn and get defenseless with only one arm, and that'd be a better advantage in striking. Understanding your space and understanding a back step or a lean back is really, really important. I don't feel like Islam has that. I think in the chaos of everything, his instincts are going to lean to wrestling. So if he gets the better of Dustin in striking and Dustin falls, the rest of the round could easily be finished grappling. But I'm not going to say that Islam didn't outstrike him. You know what I'm saying? And with that said, I think Islam still has quite a few fights to prove this. But based off performance, and what he's been doing against people, if Islam can outstrike Dustin, like, I would put Islam farther in the GOAT conversation than people were putting Kamaru. And I don't even want to put him in a GOAT conversation. We'll just say like a top guy pound for pound. But people were all on Kamaru Usman's nuts, acting like he was one of the greatest fighters of all time when he had like 2 or 3 wins. And I just didn't see the dominance there. And I can understand how, really, when I say all that out loud, I'm like, man, it really hasn't been like that with Islam either. I don't feel like we can give him as much credit as he gets for fighting Volkanovski twice. Like, Volk is half his size, and he came up in weight to fight him. Like, it's not I don't know. It's just not a challenge to me. I wouldn't say it's not a challenge, but it's not the top tier of 155, which is who we should be beating. But I do think if he comes out and he displays that he's working on his striking, he is displaying that he is becoming a much more rounded fighter than Khabib. And if we put Khabib as a top 5 pound for pound of all time, then you got to put Islam up there, if that makes sense. So, in conclusion, I think he's going to come out and he's going to stand and bang. The real question is just going to be for how long? Is it going to be until he clips him? Could he score a KO? I absolutely think he could score a KO. It would not surprise me at all if Islam came out and won by KO in the 2nd round. That might be my prediction. I'm not going to guarantee that right now, but that might be where I'm leaning. We're going to get started on eating some breakfast.